Hello, Capricorn. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for spending this time with me today. This will be a general reading, so not every message will resonate with everyone. Take what feels like yours and leave the rest. Now, Capricorn, the energy coming through already feels intense, because someone who has been holding back for a very long time is reaching a point where silence is becoming harder than the truth. They've been trying to stay focused on other things, trying to stay busy, trying to stay in control. But their emotions are getting louder. And the cards are showing me that this story may be far from over. So let's see what's happening here. Interesting. I'm seeing the Judgment card right away, and honestly, Capricorn, this doesn't feel subtle at all. This feels like someone waking up to something they can no longer avoid. You know, I keep getting the image of a person sitting alone after a long day. The work is done. The emails have been answered. The responsibilities have been handled. Everything that normally keeps them distracted is finally quiet. And that's exactly when your energy starts showing up. That's exactly when the thoughts they have been trying to push away start returning. Because for a long time, this person believed they could control the situation by controlling their emotions. They believed that if they stayed busy enough, focused enough, disciplined enough, eventually these feelings would fade. But they didn't. In fact, they seem to have grown stronger. Okay? There's something very interesting happening here. The more this person tries to move forward logically, the more their heart keeps pulling them backward emotionally. It's almost frustrating for them. Because I don't feel like this is someone who enjoys feeling vulnerable. I don't feel like this is someone who likes uncertainty. This person prefers clear plans, clear goals, clear outcomes. But when it comes to you, nothing has felt simple. Nothing has felt easy to categorize. And that's why they've spent so much time trying to suppress it. Wow, the Eight of Wands is showing up now. And suddenly everything feels faster. The energy shifts. It's almost like something has been building pressure for months, maybe even longer for some of you. And now that pressure is reaching a point where it has to go somewhere. I keep hearing the phrase, I can't keep doing this, not because they don't care, but because pretending not to care is becoming exhausting. This person has been carrying conversations inside their head that have never actually happened. They've imagined reaching out. They've imagined explaining themselves. They've imagined what they would say if they finally had the courage to speak honestly. And the strange thing is, the more they imagine it, the more real it becomes, the more difficult it becomes to stay silent. You may not even realize how often they've been thinking about you lately, because outwardly, they might appear completely focused on their own life, completely focused on work, completely focused on responsibilities. But internally, that's a very different story. Internally, there is a lot happening. There are questions they haven't answered, words they haven't spoken, feelings they haven't fully admitted. And every time they try to push those emotions aside, they somehow find their way back. Honestly, Capricorn, I don't feel like this person expected you to remain so important to them. I think that's part of what's surprising them right now. Time passed. Life happened. Both of you changed. Yet somehow your presence never fully disappeared from their heart. Okay, now the Ace of Swords is showing up. And this feels powerful, because suddenly the energy becomes crystal clear. Something is clicking into place for them. Something they've been avoiding seeing. I almost feel like they've been arguing with themselves. One side saying, let it go. The other side saying, no, not yet. One side telling them to move on. The other side reminding them why they can't. And eventually, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. This person is starting to realize that silence hasn't solved anything. It hasn't brought them peace. It hasn't helped them move forward. If anything, it's left them carrying unfinished emotions that keep resurfacing when they least expect it. And I think that's what scares them the most. Because the truth requires action. The truth requires honesty. The truth changes things. And once they say what they've been holding back, there's no going back to pretending. Wow, the King of Swords just landed on the table. And I have to tell you, Capricorn, this feels like someone preparing themselves mentally for a conversation they've been avoiding. Not an impulsive conversation. Not a reckless conversation. This feels carefully considered, almost rehearsed. Like they've gone over every possible outcome in their mind, every possible reaction, every possible response, because they don't want to get this wrong. They don't want emotions to take over. They want to approach you with clarity, with honesty, with maturity. But underneath that calm exterior, there's still nervousness, there's still uncertainty. Because no matter how much they prepare, they cannot control how you'll respond. And for someone who likes certainty, that is one of the hardest parts. I keep feeling this growing awareness inside of them, a realization that some conversations don't arrive because they're convenient. They arrive because they're necessary. And the more I sit with these cards, the more I feel this person standing at the edge of that realization, knowing that something important needs to be said, and knowing they may not be able to hold it back much longer. And honestly, I think that's exactly what keeps bringing them back to your energy. Okay, the Queen of Pentacles is sitting here now, and the moment she appears, the atmosphere changes. Everything feels calmer, more grounded, more certain. Because when this person thinks about you, Capricorn, they don't just think about attraction. They don't just think about chemistry. They think about stability. They think about someone who has quietly built a life brick by brick. Someone who doesn't need to announce their strength because it shows in everything they do. You know what's interesting? I don't actually feel like they're watching you because they're trying to figure out what you're doing. I feel like they're watching you because they're trying to figure out how you've become who you are. There's a difference. This person has seen your growth. They've seen the way you've handled disappointments. They've seen the way you've kept moving forward even when nobody was clapping for you, even when nobody was validating you. And there's something about that which deeply affects them, because I don't think they expected you to become this version of yourself. Not because they doubted you, but because the transformation happened quietly, without drama, without needing attention, without needing anyone's permission. Wow, the star is showing up. And the moment this card lands, I get this feeling that you've become a source of inspiration for them, whether they admit it or not, whether they've ever said it out loud or not. There have been moments when they looked at their own life and then looked at yours, and something inside them shifted. Not jealousy, not resentment, something closer to admiration, because you've become proof that healing is possible, growth is possible, a different life is possible. And honestly, Capricorn, I don't think this person tells many people how much they respect you. In fact, I think they hide it. I think they keep it tucked away behind logic and pride and practical conversations. But deep down, they respect you far more than you realize. They respect your resilience, your discipline, your ability to keep going when things become difficult. And for some of you, this person remembers a version of you that was still figuring things out, still searching, still doubting yourself, which makes the contrast even more powerful. Because now when they look at you, they see someone completely different, someone who learned how to stand on their own, someone who stopped chasing validation, someone who no longer needs other people to tell them who they are. Okay, now the Nine of Pentacles is showing up. And wow, this feels incredibly strong because I keep hearing the phrase, they don't need me, not in a sad way, not in a negative way, just as a realization. This person is beginning to understand that you are no longer waiting for someone to come rescue you. You're not sitting around hoping somebody chooses you. You've chosen yourself. You've invested in yourself. You've built something meaningful for yourself. And that realization creates a lot of emotions inside of them, because part of them always assumed there would be more time, more opportunities, more chances. But now they're looking at you and realizing that your life continues moving forward regardless. You're creating, building, expanding, living. And something about that makes them stop and think, because for the first time, they can clearly see what they stand to lose. Not from a place of fear, but from a place of awareness. It's almost like they're standing outside a beautiful home they've never entered, looking through the windows, realizing how much warmth exists inside, realizing how much effort went into creating it, and wondering why they stayed outside for so long. Honestly, this person studies you more than you know, not in an unhealthy way, not in an obsessive way, but in a way that reveals genuine curiosity. They notice little things, changes in your energy, changes in your attitude, changes in the way you carry yourself, and each change tells them another chapter of your story, a story they never fully understood while it was happening. Wow, the world is showing up now, and this feels important, because I don't think they're only seeing who you are today. They're seeing the entire journey. They're seeing everything it took for you to get here, the disappointments, the setbacks, the sacrifices, the moments when nobody knew how hard things really were. And that's where the admiration becomes even deeper, because suddenly, they're realizing that your confidence wasn't handed to you. You earned it. Your peace wasn't given to you. You fought for it. Your stability wasn't luck. You built it. And there's something incredibly humbling about that for this person. Because the more they reflect on your journey, the more they begin reflecting on their own. I keep feeling them asking themselves difficult questions. Questions they may have avoided before. Questions about what truly matters. Questions about what success actually means. Questions about whether they've spent too much time chasing things that never brought them real fulfillment. And somehow, every road seems to lead back to you. Not because you're perfect, not because you're flawless, but because you've become a living example of something they've been searching for without realizing it. Something authentic, something genuine, something real. And the longer they sit with that realization, the harder it becomes to look away. There's something about distance that changes a person's perspective. Not physical distance necessarily. Sometimes it's emotional distance. Sometimes it's the realization that someone who used to be available is no longer standing in the same place they once were. And as I sit with these cards, Capricorn, that's exactly where this energy seems to be unfolding. The Five of Cups has appeared. And the moment it lands here, I get this feeling of someone replaying old memories in their mind. Not because they're stuck in the past, because suddenly the past looks different. You know how certain moments don't seem important when they're happening? Then years later, you look back and realize they meant everything. That's what this feels like. This person is revisiting conversations they barely appreciated at the time. Moments when you showed up for them. Moments when you were patient. Moments when you offered understanding they didn't fully deserve. And now those memories keep resurfacing. Not because anyone is forcing them to, because their heart won't let them forget. What's fascinating is that I don't think this realization happened all at once. I think it arrived quietly. Piece by piece, little moments, little reminders, a song, a place, a random memory while driving, something somebody said, and suddenly they're back there again, looking at things from a completely different perspective. Okay, the Four of Cups is showing up now. And this feels incredibly personal, because I keep sensing somebody who was offered something valuable while they were focused somewhere else, almost like life placed a gift directly in front of them. But their attention was occupied by other priorities, other goals, other responsibilities, other ambitions. And Capricorn, I don't necessarily feel like this person was trying to hurt you. That's not the energy I'm getting. I feel someone who genuinely believed there would always be another opportunity, another chance, another conversation, another tomorrow. They assumed time was working in their favor. They assumed there was no urgency. But life has a strange way of changing that. Sometimes the people we think will always be there begin creating lives that no longer revolve around us. And that's exactly what this person is seeing now. You're not standing still. You're not waiting at the same crossroads. Your energy has moved. Your focus has shifted. Your world has expanded. And the more they become aware of that, the more they begin questioning their own choices. Because now they're forced to face something uncomfortable. What if they took your presence for granted? What if they misunderstood what you truly meant to them? What if they were so focused on chasing the next achievement that they completely overlooked something irreplaceable? Wow, the Eight of Cups is here. And honestly, this card feels different from what I expected. Because the energy I'm getting isn't about somebody walking away from you. It's about someone realizing what happened after you walked away emotionally. There's a difference. I keep seeing a person standing in a room after everyone else has left. The noise is gone. The distractions are gone. And for the first time, they're left alone with their own thoughts. No excuses, no explanations, no way to avoid what's sitting in front of them. And what they're finding is a space that feels emptier than they expected. Not because they're lonely, because something meaningful is missing. You, your energy, your presence, your support. The way you believed in them, the way you saw potential in them, even when they couldn't see it themselves. Honestly, I think that's one of the things they're struggling with the most. You saw something in them before they saw it. And now that you're no longer pouring that energy into them the way you once did, they're beginning to understand how rare that actually was. The regret here feels very quiet. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, it's not somebody collapsing into tears every day. It's deeper than that. It's the kind of regret that arrives during ordinary moments. The kind that sneaks up unexpectedly. The kind that whispers, you should have appreciated that more. And once that voice starts speaking, it's very hard to silence it. Okay, the Seven of Pentacles is showing up, and wow, this card carries so much reflection. I almost feel like this person has entered a season of evaluation. They're looking at their life, looking at their choices, looking at the roads they took and the roads they didn't. And somehow your name keeps appearing in the middle of those reflections. Because the more they examine everything they've invested their energy into, the more they start comparing it to what they lost. Achievements are still there, responsibilities are still there, the goals they chased are still there. But some of those victories don't feel as satisfying as they once imagined. Because now they're beginning to understand that success means very little if you don't have the right people beside you to share it with. And that's where the weight of this realization begins settling in. This person isn't just missing you. They're questioning their own priorities. They're questioning why they waited so long. Why they assumed there would always be another chance. why they believe certain connections could simply be placed on a shelf and picked up later. I keep hearing them revisit old decisions, not because they can change them, because they're finally understanding the consequences of them. And every answer they uncover seems to lead back to the same realization that your value was never fully understood while you were still standing close enough to reach. What catches my attention now isn't the regret anymore. It's what they're choosing to do with it, because there's a huge difference between someone who feels sorry and someone who decides to change. And Capricorn, that's exactly where the energy begins shifting. The Emperor has appeared. The moment this card lands on the table, I feel someone becoming very serious with themselves, almost like they've stopped running, stopped negotiating, stopped finding reasons why something couldn't happen. I keep seeing a person standing in front of a mirror, not literally, but emotionally, looking at themselves honestly, looking at the choices they've made, looking at the patterns they've repeated, and for perhaps the first time in a very long time, they're asking themselves a difficult question. What kind of person do I actually want to be? Because here's what feels important. This person knows that feelings alone aren't enough. They know that missing someone isn't enough. Wanting someone isn't enough. Thinking about someone isn't enough. You know, there are people who spend years talking about what they wish they had done. And then there are people who finally decide to become the version of themselves capable of doing it. This feels much closer to the second group. I don't see someone chasing fantasy here. I see someone examining reality, and reality is showing them exactly where the weak spots have been. The places where fear controlled their decisions. The places where hesitation delayed important conversations. The places where pride got in the way. Okay, the Hierophant is showing up now. And wow, the atmosphere becomes very different, more mature, more intentional, more grounded. Because suddenly, this person isn't thinking about temporary emotions. They're thinking about long-term consequences. They're thinking about stability. They're thinking about what kind of future they're actually building. I keep feeling like something has changed in their perspective regarding commitment, not because somebody forced them, because life taught them something. Maybe through experience, maybe through loss, maybe through watching certain situations fall apart. Whatever happened, it caused them to reevaluate what truly matters. And oddly enough, Capricorn, your energy keeps showing up inside those reflections. Because when they picture a future that feels meaningful, you somehow keep appearing in it. Not as an idea, not as a fantasy, as a real person. Someone they could actually build something with. Someone they trust. Someone whose values align with theirs more than they realized before. Honestly, I don't think they used to look at the connection this way. I think there was a period when they were focused on immediate concerns, immediate goals, immediate responsibilities. But now they're seeing farther ahead, months, years, maybe even beyond that. And the farther they look, the more they understand that some connections are worth protecting, worth investing in, worth fighting for. Wow. The Three of Pentacles is here. And this energy feels incredibly revealing because I keep hearing the phrase, I can't do this alone, not in a dependent way, not in a helpless way, in a mature way. This person is beginning to understand the value of partnership, the value of teamwork, the value of building something alongside another person rather than carrying everything by themselves. For some of you, this individual spent a long time believing they had to handle everything alone, solve everything alone, figure everything out alone. And while that may have helped them survive, it didn't necessarily help them connect. It didn't necessarily help them create intimacy. Now they're beginning to recognize that strength and vulnerability can exist together, that allowing someone into your life isn't weakness, that trusting someone isn't weakness, that building together isn't weakness, and somehow every realization seems to circle back towards you. Because when they think about the people who genuinely supported them, your name rises to the surface. When they think about who consistently believed in them, your face appears. When they think about who accepted both their strengths and flaws, they think of you. And that awareness is changing something inside them. Okay? The Ace of Pentacles just landed. And Capricorn, this feels significant. Really significant. Because suddenly I don't feel someone dwelling on the past anymore. I feel someone looking toward possibility, toward opportunity, toward a different outcome. I keep getting the image of a person sitting at a table, making plans, not dreams, plans, actual plans, practical plans, realistic plans, thinking about what needs to change, thinking about what needs to be repaired, thinking about what needs to be addressed before they can move forward properly, because they don't want to repeat old mistakes. That's what's standing out so strongly here. This isn't someone who wants another cycle of confusion, another cycle of mixed signals, another cycle of unfinished conversations. They're becoming increasingly aware that if they truly want something different, they have to show up differently. They have to become different. And honestly, that transformation seems to already be happening. Not overnight, not dramatically, quietly, consistently. The way foundations are built, the way strong structures are built, one decision at a time, one realization at a time, one act of accountability at a time. I keep sensing them tying up loose ends in their life, addressing things they've ignored, handling responsibilities they've postponed, creating space for something more meaningful. Because deep down, they don't want to arrive empty-handed. They don't want to approach you with promises they can't keep. They want to approach you as someone who has done the work, someone who is actively becoming the person they should have been much sooner. And the closer they get to that version of themselves, the more determined they become to see where this path might finally lead. A doorway is opening here, not the kind that appears suddenly, the kind that's been slowly unlocking for a very long time. And as I look at these cards, Capricorn, I can't shake the feeling that this person has finally reached a point where thinking is no longer enough. The Page of Pentacles is showing up first, and immediately I feel movement. Small at first, careful, measured, almost cautious. Because this person has spent so much time living inside their own thoughts that taking action feels unfamiliar. You know, some people can talk about their feelings easily. Some people can send the message without overthinking it. Some people can pick up the phone without rehearsing every possible outcome. This doesn't feel like that person. This feels like someone who has rewritten the message 100 times, deleted it, started over, talked themselves out of it, then talked themselves back into it. Because what they're trying to say matters. And that's exactly why they've struggled so much. The words carry weight. The conversation carries weight. You carry weight, not pressure, importance. There's a difference. And for the first time, I feel like they're accepting that. Okay, the Ace of Pentacles has landed again. And wow, the energy feels very different than it did earlier. Because now I'm not seeing reflection, I'm seeing intention. This person is no longer focused on what could have been. They're becoming focused on what could still be. That's a huge shift, because for a while they were trapped inside regret, trapped inside missed opportunities, trapped inside all the things they should have done differently. But now something inside them is asking a different question. What can I do now? And honestly, Capricorn, that's where real change begins. I keep seeing this person imagining a conversation with you, not to impress you, not to convince you, not to manipulate the outcome, just to finally be honest. Because there are things they never explained, things they never clarified, things they assumed you already knew. And now they're realizing that silence left too many unanswered questions between the two of you. There are pieces of the story you've never heard, fears you've never seen, struggles they've never shared. And I think part of them wants you to understand what was really happening behind the scenes, not as an excuse, as context. Because they're beginning to understand that honesty requires transparency. Wow, the Six of Cups is here. And the moment it appears, memories start flooding in. Not dramatic memories, not grand gestures, the simple ones. The conversations that lasted longer than expected. The moments when they laughed harder than they meant to. The times they felt understood without having to explain themselves. The comfort, the familiarity, the ease. I keep feeling this warmth around your connection. Like no matter how much time passed, something remained untouched. Something remained recognizable. And that's what keeps pulling them back. Because life introduced them to many experiences, many people, many responsibilities. Yet somehow the emotional imprint you left behind never disappeared. They've tried to rationalize it, tried to analyze it, tried to place it neatly into a box they could understand. But every road eventually circles back to the same place. Back to you. Back to this connection. Back to the feeling that something here deserves another chance to breathe. Okay, the Two of Cups just appeared. And honestly, this card changes everything. Because what I'm seeing isn't one-sided anymore. I'm seeing recognition. I'm seeing mutual awareness. I'm seeing the possibility of two people actually meeting in the middle. For a long time, this person may have felt connected from their own emotions, disconnected from what they truly wanted, disconnected from the reality of this bond. But now the fog feels different, lighter somehow, like they're finally seeing things without all the noise surrounding them. I keep getting the sense that they don't want another almost. They don't want another unfinished chapter. They don't want another situation where important things are left unsaid. Because deep down, they know what happens when fear makes decisions. They've already lived through that version of the story, and they're tired of it. Tired of wondering, tired of imagining, tired of carrying emotions that never found a destination. Honestly, I think they're becoming braver than they realize. Not because they suddenly have all the answers, because they're willing to move forward without having all the answers. And for someone like this, that's a big deal. That's growth. That's courage. That's change. Wow, the Lovers has landed. And the moment it touches the table, everything feels incredibly clear. Not easy, not simple, clear. Because this person is arriving at a crossroads, a real one. A moment where decisions matter, where intentions matter, where actions matter. And what stands out most is that they're no longer trying to run from what they feel. They're trying to understand how to honor it, how to approach it, how to build something meaningful from it. I keep sensing them standing on the edge of a conversation they've imagined countless times. A conversation that could change the direction of everything. A conversation they've postponed for reasons that once felt important. But those reasons seem smaller now, much smaller, because what they're seeing in front of them has become impossible to dismiss. And as these cards settle, I can't help but feel that somewhere in their world, something is already beginning to shift. A thought becoming a decision becoming a plan becoming action. And the closer they move toward that moment, the less willing they are to let this connection remain only a memory living inside their mind. Something tells me this connection has been teaching both of you more than either of you realized. Not through perfect timing, not through easy answers, but through growth, through distance, through reflection, and through the realization that some people leave a mark on our lives that simply refuses to fade. So if you've been feeling this energy lately, trust what resonates and leave the rest behind. The cards are showing that something important is shifting beneath the surface. And sometimes the biggest changes begin long before anyone says a single word. That's all I've got for you for this reading. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I appreciate you more than you know. Don't forget to take good care of yourselves. And until next time, Capricorn, stay grounded, stay true to yourself, and keep following the path that's meant for you. Okay, bye.